What's going on, everyone? It's another episode of the WVSports.com podcast. I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by the one and only Keenan Cummings. And it was not a great night if you are a fan of West Virginia football, if you play on West Virginia football. It was just not a good night in general for the Mountaineers as they just got blown out by Kansas State. They fall to 3-4 on the year, 2-2 in Big 12 play. And man, 2 months ago, I don't think any of us saw this coming. So, Keenan, just your overall thoughts on what was a physical game from Kansas State, a game where Kansas State never seemed really uncomfortable to me. Just what are your overall takeaways from this game?
It's on the surface, it's pretty easy to break down. West Virginia just got handily beat. The game really largely wasn't even competitive in the second half. But then you got to factor in, some of the injuries that West Virginia had. But even before that, even before Garrett Green, Wyatt Milam, and Jaheim White went out in the second half, West Virginia they didn't look great. I give them some credit for mounting a comeback. They were kind of dead in the water, I thought, at 13-3, and they score a touchdown. They get a stop. They're on the doorstep of tying the thing up. They don't get the play. We later find out that, Garrett Green might not have, been dealing with an injury while he was in there, which obviously could have contributed to that fourth down play. But overall, just a really disappointing night for West Virginia. Again, it's a common theme under this regime, unfortunately. West Virginia has a chance to make a statement on national television, and the statement is that they're not ready for it. I mean, that's what it's become. They've played 3 ranked teams at home this season. They were in the Iowa State game for a while, but the other 2 were essentially over by early in the third quarter. And, I looked around yesterday at the start of the fourth quarter, and, man, that place was empty. People were gone. The game was over. Not in terms of time, but definitely in terms of everything but that. And is that where West Virginia wants to be? I know every game's different, and this one was a little bit unique because of the injuries, but this isn't an isolated incident. It's not the first time West Virginia's had these situations. Is that where West Virginia wants to be 6 years into this thing? A team that just isn't able to win these type of games. And I think that's where we're at. Kansas State was the much more physical football team. And I think that's been something the last 2 weeks. West Virginia's gotten beat up by 2 physical football teams. They were very good defensively. I was really disappointed with the West Virginia defense. I thought their zone coverages were everywhere. They weren't able to get where they needed to get. Kansas State was kind of cutting them up on easy throws. They made Avery Johnson looked great, but he didn't really have to do that much. He just dropped back, find a guy that found a spot in the zone, turn a 5-yard gain into a 15 to 18-yard gain because no one was there. So the drops were off, landmarks were off. Neil talked about that. It's been an issue all year, but really the last 2 weeks, 2 teams have exposed it. They had another bust again in quarters coverage. I think it was another 60-yard touchdown too. Must be a magic number for busts. But they got Anthony Wilson deep and just threw it over the top. It was an easy score. Yes, West Virginia was incredible in run defense. They made Kansas State throw the ball, but if you're going to make them throw the ball, you can't give them such easy access throws. And that's the problem. That's what Neil said. They're going to try to switch up their coverages, but you're not going to beat anybody. It doesn't matter if you can't stop the run. I mean, that's 10, 12 yards every play, and it's basically like a long handoff. It's right in front of him, easy throws. He didn't really have to work for much of that. And, 2 plays kind of sum up the night for me in a nutshell. One, the fourth down play, that on offense. And 2, the first drive of the second half. West Virginia has a chance.
The other fourth down play.
Yes. West Virginia has a chance to sack Avery Johnson, get off the field. It looks like it's all but over. Somehow he slips out, gets the first down. They go down and score a touchdown, never look back. That sums up that game for me and really, for the most part, the season so far. West Virginia's 3-4. Absolutely disappointing. I don't care what's happened. I don't care what the excuse is. There's nothing. I mean, 3-4 is absolutely unacceptable for this team. I know they've lost to good teams, but if you want to take that leap, if you want to spend all offseason talking about how we're going to take that leap, you have to take it. You have to beat some good teams. And yes, you played a tough schedule. And, it's kind of like a record now with Neil in a sense that he says that a lot. He's not wrong. I'm not in any way trying to say that West Virginia hasn't lost to 4 good football teams, but you had 4 shots to beat one of those teams. And you've been outside of, collapsing at Pitt, which I think might be worse than being uncompetitive, but you've been largely uncompetitive in the other 3. And, that's a problem.
Yeah, I think for me it starts with the word close. I think that's the word that we've heard all off season. That's the word we've heard after all of these losses is we are close. It's just a matter of time before we get there. And I think the hourglass of time before we get there seems to be running out because you're not close. I think that yesterday proved that. I think the last 2 weeks proved that of you had exactly what you could have dreamed of if you're West Virginia and you want to make a run in this thing. And that is 2 home games at night against ranked opponents. And I'm not sure you can even say they fell flat on their face because they're doing this consistently against good teams where they don't even play well. They just don't show up. And when you're not able to show up against a good team, I think that's able to say that you're a bad team. And so it's a tough watch with this team, especially yesterday, because it was just Kansas State never felt threatened by this West Virginia team. They had the pick 6 early, and then it was just smooth sailing from there. The biggest play of the game, I think, is that 4th and 5 on that you talked about, the Sean Martin, where he's just chasing Avery Johnson, and you're like, okay, they're going to get a stop. They're going to have really good field position near the 45 or 50, and they're going to have a chance. And all of a sudden, Avery Johnson leaks out, dumps it off, and then like 3 or 4 plays later, Kansas State scores a touchdown. And it goes from you have the ball down 7 to down 14. Your backup quarterback's coming in. They go 3 and out, and then it was just over from that point on. And so that whole idea of being close, the we're close, that play kind of speaks for that of look how close we say we are, and in reality, we're not getting the job done.
Yeah, and I was going to say, how many times has stuff like that happened this year? I mean, easy sacks, easy
Even
picks.
not, but not even just this year. I think if you go back the last year, the season before, there's been so many instances where a play looks like it has the opportunity to be made to go in favor of West Virginia, and it's just not made. And it seems like a lot of times it's in like we see it in slow motion of this is going to happen, this is going to happen, but then the result that we expect is never there. And so I don't know what to really make of that because it's a consistent thing, it's a consistent problem that things aren't getting done in a positive direction for this football team. And 3 and 4 is not where you thought we would be, not where I thought this team would be. But here we are, and it seems like it's the same issues popping up every single time.
I mean, like I've said this before, but fans have to start to wonder if it's not this year, when's it going to be? I bought into this. I overpicked.
We
West
both
Virginia.
bought into this.
I
Yeah.
overpicked West Virginia. I admitted it. I was buying into the hype. Like I liked what I saw. I liked what returned. I thought that this team had a chance to take that leap. You thought that they had turned the corner last year, but here we are. 3 and 4. West Virginia is kind of the same old thing. And you mentioned that 4th down play. You could just feel it in the stadium. And that play is almost, and I'm not blaming Sean Martin. Johnson is slippery. I get it. And there's probably a hold on that play that wasn't called, but they didn't call it, so it doesn't matter. But that play is a microcosm for really the last 6 years. It gets a good jump. The sack's there, doesn't get it. Not only doesn't get it, they get a 1st down, and you could feel in the stadium just
you could
the
kind of
energy
sense
left.
the crescendo of energy and volume as you like kind of saw Sean Martin getting there, and then like the overall.
It just went flat, and then after
Yeah.
that, they went right down and scored, and pretty much scored every drive after that if they wanted to. And I think that it was tough on the defense. They were missing a lot of people, and I understand that, and some of that's probably some of the issues with their coverages, having some guys in there that haven't played a lot. I understand that. But it's next man up. No one wants to hear the injury excuse. Every team's dealing with injuries. It's part of the game.
Even early, though, this team never seemed to be just there. It's like on offense, like even that touchdown drive that they went down to make it 17-10, it was an
It was a
ugly,
struggle.
ugly drive.
Honestly, their best offense last night, and, sometimes during the game, I like to avoid looking at Twitter or trying to read things. I had a lot of people responding to me, like, trying to bench Garrett Green. Their best offense last night was Garrett Green going off schedule. It was their
Yeah.
best offense, or when
But
they
also
designed.
it's because early he couldn't complete a pass and they
No,
couldn't
he
run the
couldn't.
ball.
I mean, he didn't play perfect. In no way am I arguing that. I mean, he definitely played poorly as a passer, especially early. I think he found his rhythm, after, like, a little bit later in the second half or first half, I mean. But their best offense were either design runs or when he went off schedule. Other than that, they couldn't even move the football. This is 2 weeks in a row now. 2 weeks in a row. Guess how many 10-yard runs West Virginia running backs have in the
I'm
last 2
gonna
weeks?
say 2.
One, and it happened in this game. C.J. Donaldson had a 10-yard run, I believe, and that's 2 weeks. And this is a team that prides itself on running the football. I think that, for lack of a better term, they've kind of been big boyed a little bit the last 2 weeks by two really physical, two really good defenses, and that's going to happen sometimes. But the problem
But
is West Virginia's built around that.
the problem is that you're getting big boyed in year 6 of a tenure when you were supposed to be the big boy. And so I think that's the issue of you're getting bullied when you were supposed to be the bully of the Big 12 because of your physical offensive line, your physical running backs, like that whole setup. And it's 2 weeks in a row now where that just hasn't happened. It's been the opposite.
Yeah, and it's a problem. West Virginia did not have a good. I mean, they had about, as we can argue the context and everything that happened with Neil's comments, but they had about as bad as a week from a publicity standpoint as you could have without doing really anything wrong. But somehow Saturday was worse. Yeah, Saturday was worse than this week. And how long? Yeah, this was the home loss. Kansas State could have scored 60 points if they wanted to. They could have at least scored 50. At the end of the game. But I mean, just that's where it's. And I think the real concern here is, yes, Kansas State's a really good football team, and you lose to them. What's left in the tank for this team? Because now you got to go to Arizona, which isn't
So
going to be.
that was gonna be my next question and kind of thing we can finish off talking about. Where does this team go from here? Because they're now under 500, and they now have to go out west across the country to play an Arizona team
And a beat up football team at that.
Yeah, and so it just it's
Seriously,
gonna be tough.
Wes, I was looking at this last night. I was writing my 3-2-1 for Monday. What can West Virginia do at this point to make people can they make this season a success, in terms of just making people feel good about the program? Is that even possible with the remaining 5 games?
I mean, even if they go 5-0,
That's what I'm saying. Is it even possible?
I don't know how you go 5-0 and you're happy because of what happened in the first half of the season. Because you can't go 0-2 against Pitt and Penn State, lose the way you did at Pitt, have the 2 biggest home games of your conference season, lose by double digits and get blown out in the second one.
7 straight double-digit losses to ranked teams.
And 9 straight losses to ranked teams in general, and 3-17 since Neil. Like how? Like
it's been almost 3 calendar years.
And I think the thing that fans, at least on social media, seem to be kind of clinging onto is the fact that they're starting to think that the end of last year, when they went on that run of like winning 5 or 6 or whatever it was, like they're starting to realize the competition probably played a little bit of a factor there. And I think it did.
I don't want to take away from what they did.
I don't want to take
they
away.
Played good football.
They did play good football, Keenan, but at some point you have to recognize that they played 3 newcomers in that stretch that were all young and inexperienced and had first-year head coaches. Like that Cincinnati team was like a much different Cincinnati team than the Cincinnati team that's here right now. That BYU team, a complete 180 from the BYU team that's in this spot right now. So like that Baylor team, West Virginia probably should have lost that game, right? Like if it's not for that drive, because they couldn't stop a kickoff return. So they caught a couple breaks last year, especially in that back half, especially in November. And so I'm not saying that they can't catch breaks this year, but I don't know how you can continue to sell something when you have your biggest games of the year and you don't even come close in any of them except the Pitt one, and that might be the worst one of them all because you should have won that game.
Well, my concern is in terms of rallying. Last year, it's easy to rally in a sense, not because of the schedule, not because I'm not. That's not what I'm pointing at. But a lot of these guys were coming back. It's like let's show everybody what we got. Build on a platform. This is a team where a lot of these guys are going to be gone. And in today's world, I know everyone's going to press the panic button. Look at Pitt; they lost almost their entire roster from last year, and they're better. I mean, that's the transfer portal era. I'm not saying it's not possible for West Virginia to do that, but a lot of their guys this is their last year, and this is disappointing any way you slice it. What did we hear all off season? Arlington, they're 2-2. They're probably out of that picture by now. Yeah, I don't see any
Even
way.
even if they go undefeated,
I mean,
they're
Kansas
not gonna
State
have, the
and
tiebreakers would fall short for them. They'd
Kansas
have
State
two
and Iowa
losses
State
to
have a
Michigan State.
tiebreaker over them, and I don't see either of those teams losing 3 games
Exactly.
in the conference. So at this point, I think that's probably done. I mean, it probably was done a couple weeks ago.
So
But
then that's the big question of what's your motivation if you're West Virginia? Like, how do you find it within yourself?
pride, salvage a really disappointing year. I mean, but again, it's stacks on stacks on stacks that we're into year 6. What would one good year, would you say? Last year's a good year.
Yeah.
Anyway, you win 9
Last year's a
games, I
good
don't care
year,
who
no
you
matter
beat.
what. Yeah, no matter what you say, last year's a good year.
And
The
probably the
second
first
best
year
year is
you
probably,
saw some promise at 5 and 7.
I would say the second best year out of all that is 2020. Because
Yeah,
they won the bowl game that year, right? Yeah, they won
yeah.
the bowl game, and they had out of their 9-game season, they went 5-3 in the regular season, and
I mean,
something like
it's
that.
uncomfortable, but we're 67 games into this, and
We're
it's
one game above 500.
34 and 33. That's not going to get it done. It's not going to get done, especially a place like West Virginia that has a really proud tradition. It prides themselves on winning, success, and it is what it is. That is why you're seeing so much frustration from the fan base, and apathy is starting to set in for some people. Whether it is what it is.
It feels like it can't get worse, and it continues to get worse. And I think that's the big thing. It felt like after what happened in 2022, after what's happened throughout Neil Brown's tenure, you were like, okay, the ship has finally been righted. And sure enough, the ship is heading south yet again.
And I feel like even when they build some momentum, they find a way to squander it. And it's really just kind of been the way it's been. You look at people were on board for this team to start the year. They put a lot of their stuff behind them. There were a lot of frustrated fans that were kind of done with this thing before this season started, but they were all in. Let's go. Let's rally around this team. And they've been proven correct so far. 5 games left. If West Virginia finishes this season, 8-4, I don't know how good you feel about it.
I'm trying to think on their schedule, right?
It would be a lot better than the alternative, but
I'm trying to if you can't really even circle in a win anymore right now, just the way they're playing.
No.
That Cincinnati team's playing all right. That UCF team went up into
they just
Iowa
don't
State
play well on the road anyway. So
exactly, and then you got to go to Texas Tech, to Arizona.
They can beat every single one of those teams, but they could
also lose to all.
Yes, they could lose to every single one of them. And West Virginia is -7 in turnover margin now, -7. And that's absolutely ridiculous from an experience.
Garrett Green has 7 interceptions, I believe. 7 or 8? He had 4 all of last year.
It's not been good.
I think my last thought here is that when you return as much as this team returned, especially on offense, because I'm going to focus on the offense because that was supposed to be the backbone of this team, you expect there to be a jump made by these guys. And it doesn't look like they've taken that jump as an offense. It doesn't look like players have progressed. It doesn't look like they have developed into a better player. And at some point, you might have to say, is that coaching? Is that talent acquisition? What is that? And so that's where I'm at with this team is we were sold a promise in August. We were sold this goal of Arlington, of a Big 12 championship. And instead of looking like a team, I think it's one thing if you lose the last 2 games and you lose them late and it's like a close loss and you battle all the way till the end. It was neither of those. Like, it
Oh,
was just not that. And so that's the thing for me of you're not getting closer. It seems like you've taken a step back from last year. It seems like there are guys who have not progressed and not continued to develop. And so that's the troublesome thing of where do you go from here? Because I mean, even this week, right? Like, we're going to be talking about injuries the entire week. Garrett Green might not be playing Saturday. Wyatt Milan might not be playing Saturday. We just don't know. They all missed the second half. Jaheim White, same deal with him. So it could get ugly in Tucson depending on the health of this team.
yeah, and it's already ugly. It can get worse. If this team falls to 3-5, you've got
Ooh,
one loss that you can have for the rest of the year, and you won't even go to a bowl game.
yeah.
That
And
is
they have another bye week. Oh, it would just get
that is this team missing a bowl. It was completely not even on my radar, and I'm not jumping ahead. I'm not saying they will, but if that comes to fruition, yikes! It's going to get even more ugly in Morgantown.
and I hate to say it, but long way to go. But it feels like there's a short time until fans kind of just put all their chips in and say I'm done. But anything else from you before we get out of here?
Nope, I think that covers it.
Well, if you made it this far, we appreciate you listening. Maybe go check out our site. As you said, as Keenan said, 3-2-1. If you don't know what that is, you can go find out tomorrow morning. Three things he learned, 2 questions, and 1 prediction. I wonder what that prediction will be because I'm not sure what you can predict right now. He's probably going to take the easy way out and do basketball. That's just a guess. But no, we will have actually more basketball content coming. We'll probably have a basketball season preview sort of thing coming in the next week or so, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Keenan? We'll do that. Yeah, maybe basketball will ease the nerves.
Good for the soul.
Good for the soul, healing, but that might get ugly too. But that's neither here nor there. If you made it this far, we appreciate you listening. I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by Keenan Cummings, whose son was the kickoff kid and did a great job yesterday. It was pretty cool seeing Keenan smile and be all giddy over his kid, and that's awesome to see. So we appreciate you listening, and this is the WVSports.com podcast.